Just down to that show.
Are live. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Dishes and Dimes Weekly. I'm your host today, Noor, and I'm joined by my co-host Iman, who you cannot see, and my guest Robel, as well as PD, who you also can't see. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here. How are you, Iman?
Are
you hiding today?
I am hiding. I was gonna lower my voice and pretend that I wasn't me. I'm just like a third draft you guys brought on today.
You should have brought on your oh shit.
My Morgan Freeman voice.
Yes, your Morgan Freeman voice.
It's exactly. Morgan Freeman here. You know what? Let's just pretend I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm gonna change my name. Continue hosting.
Can you actually?
Yeah,
do it
right now.
So if you guys are active on Twitter, there's no way you don't know about PD and Robel. I'm not sure if you guys have seen their play-by-plays and their intricate breakdowns of draft picks, of players, of their talents, of their skill sets and everything. But it's super, super informative. Someone like me who's gone into basketball for a long time, but who hasn't really understood how to break things down professionally. I'm watching Robel's videos, looking at PD's breakdown. It's been really helpful and really eye-opening. Like there's some times where I'll look at their stuff and I'll come on the podcast and I'll be like, well, I got to source these guys because that's who I'm referencing because they know what they're talking about. So yeah, if you guys need to, you 100% should check out their stuff. I'll give the floor to them for a second so they can plug themselves as well. So go for it, guys. Robel, talk about your videos.
All right, so I make videos about NBA players, NBA draft prospects, and even high school players. And yeah, I don't really like writing, so I'm just more of a video guy. And yeah, you should go subscribe. It's called Sub Me In Coach, and I post about once a week, and you should check it out.
I second that. How about you, PD?
Yeah, I'm not a video guy. I don't have the face that Robel has, so you got to work with what you have. I write prospect breakdowns on high school and college players as they develop into the league and try to give people tools who maybe don't have as much of either a basketball background or a basketball operations background, so that they can take like some of the tools that I use for myself for them. So that it's more about teaching people how to scout and how to approach things rather than saying like, here's the right opinion to have. It's like, hey, I hope one day you can come and be like, you're totally wrong on this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great for someone like me. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. So, just to get this general area where you're being fed information, not being told what to think is fantastic. So I would definitely recommend these guys. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. They're going to get picked up by the NBA sooner or later. So get on the bandwagon now. But with that, we'll just jump right into the questions. So it's been a crazy week in the NBA. It's going to get even crazier. And already so much has happened. We have so much movement already, which is insane. And just so many rumors that are going on. So much is about to come that we don't even know what's going to happen yet. But based off of what's actually been transactioned, Morey had to give up 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps to get off of Chris Paul's contract, only for Chris Paul to be traded for assets, including a pick back. What do you guys think about that deal? And what do you guys think CP3 brings to the Suns?
I'll let PD go first.
Okay.
Yeah. Houston was in a tough spot because they had to win now. And seeing Presti pull off a much easier to stomach move that both suits his short-term and long-term needs is great to watch. I think that the Suns were extremely ready to make this deal, no matter what the cost was, because they need to win now. And they need to win now to make sure that Booker stays, and they need to win now to turn this young core that they have into an actual playoff team. And in the West, getting as many weapons as you can just to get the 8th seed is sort of the only way you can go.
Absolutely. And I feel like just with the Western Conference getting weak, I guess not weaker, but just not being as strong as it used to be, it's a great time for the Suns to make that run and to push themselves in contendership. How about you, Robel?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Suns fan for a bit, like about 2 years now. It's like my second favorite
2 years now, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong fan.
It's like, when you're adopted bad team, that's my bad team. So I wasn't like completely on board for point guard. I just felt like he was fully maximized as an off-ball player. And I feel like CP3 is just the perfect guy for him to, reach that 30-point per game season. I don't know if he's going to have as much usage for that, but I really hope he does. But I'm just a big fan of it. Like PD said, the roster is kind of older than you might think so. And they just need to make the playoffs again and just make some noise because it's been a long time, So I like the move.
I do too. And I don't know if it's gonna get CP3 a ring. Probably not. He's still in the conference with LeBron. But I mean, it's closer than what he was at before. And like we said, with the conference kind of dwindling down, it's better chances for him in the long run. Another major trade that happened yesterday was Bledsoe got traded to the Pelicans along with George Hill, 3 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps for Drew Holiday. There was a lot of talk about how we don't know how this trade is going to go down because at the very beginning it seemed like it was just for Bledsoe and for George Hill, and people were like, "Oh, that's great, that's all be fantastic for the Bucks." But then we realized that the Bucks kind of actually sold their village for the future to get Drew and to also make sure that Giannis would be happy. How do you guys think this decision is going to pan out for the Bucks in the future, and how is this going to bode for Giannis staying in the long run?
I mean, pressure was applied. Giannis had some, how do I say it? Some odd quotes, and it's not like him to do that. So that he wants change. He's looking at Toronto, he's looking at Miami, and the Bucks they felt pressure and they just had to make this win now move. I feel like it's going to be, a lot nerve-wracking for Bucks fans because it's all or nothing. If they don't win, he might come to Toronto. So, I feel like I like the move in that regard because I like when front office take a lot of initiative and trying to build a championship contender. And I feel like Drew and Bogdanovich do move the needle. Like Drew gets to the rim anytime he wants. Bogdanovich is a very good shooter. Just works well within the offense, and you got rid of Bledsoe, who he hurts more than help, on the offensive end. So it's like that's already a plus, just getting him out of there.
Yeah, I think
they pretty much won just letting him go. Sorry, Petey, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a great move if they win a title and Giannis stays, because if they don't win a title and Giannis doesn't stay, this is going to be a crater for the NBA for 5-10 years.
Yeah,
they basically mortgage the entire future. This is
so bad.
This is the plan that we've kind of seen LeBron do. Is like, if you have me, we're going to be fine. So what do these picks matter? The thing is though, Giannis hasn't necessarily committed. So there's a chance that he could skate, and then this team is awful for a really long time in a market that may not necessarily support it. So this is the sort of thing you have to do if you're in a situation with a superstar who is looking to the potential or the greener pastures of Miami and Toronto. That being said, if you're the Pelicans, you feel like you just get Christmas a couple times this year.
Yeah,
because they're going to have draft picks going forever. They have Giannis, and they get, Bledsoe's shooting is a problem in the playoffs. His day-to-day mentality and tenacity is something you want to surround young players with, and it gives them some interesting ways of approaching their lineups going forward. I mean, this is a trade that's great for both teams, unless Milwaukee falls in any way short.
I think there are a couple of really interesting things that you mentioned in there. For one, I'll say that I also think that I think with trades like this and the reaction that we get, people look at trades in a vacuum, and that's not how any trade should really be evaluated. Evaluated. Why did I stop the word halfway? And I think looking at this move, it's more so about Giannis than anything with Drew. And I like the move because I think Drew Holiday is a better player than Eric Bledsoe. I think he has some of the same limitations that Bledsoe has, and he does a lot of the things that Bledsoe does well, just better than Eric Bledsoe. And I think that if you're a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, which is a historic team, just having a better version of Bledsoe in the end helps you and can be the thing that takes you over the top. I also love the fact that Bogey came in because I'm a fan of his. And he does provide that additional shooting because it's not like Drew is a particularly good shooter. But you mentioned something in there that I thought was interesting about Giannis, about having Giannis and not necessarily needing picks, because we have you guys on specifically to talk about the draft. And if you're looking at a team like the Raptors, the Raptors have been a team that have been in contention over the last, 7-8 years so far, while also still developing guys and really valuing not necessarily picks, but young guys coming in. So what do you think about all of these contenders kind of pushing away their draft picks as if it's not really necessary in a win now situation? Or is that a move like the general NBA fan base kind of believes it's a good move to focus on that? But as draft specific guys, I know you guys see value in young players that maybe the rest of us don't necessarily see. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it just depends what type of player you have as your your lead guy. If you have a Giannis, LeBron, who else, like guys in the future like Jason Tatum or whatever, you might just not care as much. But giving up like 3-4 picks, it's just short-term thinking, right? Like you gotta win the championship for it not to matter. So it's like if you don't, then you have guys like that Cade Cunningham, you're just missing out on them every single year, just like a franchise star that you could have had a chance on, and you just always trade your pick. Or, you can get a guy at 27, like a Pascal Siakam. You could luck out. Like that could happen. So it's like, I personally value picks a lot, especially if you have a good development staff. So that's how I would just look at it.
Yeah, I think that it depends on the place that your organization is in. No 32-year-old basketball player wants to babysit an 18-year-old. And so if they have a choice between, bringing an 18-year-old into a locker room or a guy who they know they've played in the playoffs a bunch, who's, probably around the same age cohort, they're always going to want the person who they think is a trusted commodity. But having a good organization is sort of saying one for now, one for later, one for now, one for later. Because when you get old, like as a contending team, it happens really fast. And all of a sudden you look around and everybody on your roster is like 37 years old. And you realize that once they go, it's over. And this is sort of, again, to bring up Braun, like this is when that Miami Heat team finished, there were no young guys on it. Everybody was having their last hurrah on a 1-year contract. And then the team was decimated immediately afterwards. So I think that having an organizational culture that can have multiple timelines, and this could also be by having different age superstars, which, the Raptors have. You have somebody who's on Kyle's timeline, you have somebody who's on Pascal's timeline, your team has to be flexible for both. Because, if Kyle moves on, then your timeline shifts a little bit. Maybe you don't want as many guys in Kyle's age group. But, if, say, Pascal has to be made available in a James Harden trade, something that could certainly be happening, suddenly you want to move everybody out. So I think that the draft is a way of maintaining flexibility, and it's also a way of keeping developmental prospects in your program. It can be really difficult to depend on finding things the Morey way, where you just grab a guy off the street and hope that he can, give you 16 good minutes and knock down some threes. And sometimes that really works. Other times you're in a playoff game and you realize you can only play 6 people.
Those are both really good answers to that. I was just really interested in it because we're talking about these teams like 3 picks, 2 pick swaps, and just like the amount of picks moving for a team with Giannis. I'm like, if he doesn't go, you're a small market franchise. What are you going to do not having any picks? It's not like you're attracting
anybody else.
And I like Drew. It's not like he's a great, you're still kind of lacking a lot of the things that you wanted more out of from Bledsoe. And Chris Paul would have been a better fit, but you can't win them all.
Do you guys think there was truth to those statements where they were saying that the Bucks never even talked about shopping Chris Paul, which I thought was really shocking for me. I thought if anyone should be focused on Chris Paul, it should be the Bucks. Like, you want a good ball handler to make sure that they're feeding Giannis. Not that Giannis needs feeding, but just to create the space for everybody else on the court too. But then I heard reports that they never even shopped for Chris Paul. How do you guys feel about that? If they even did that?
I've heard that the Chris Paul deal was done for a while. So I think they could have called,
that's true too.
Then the Suns had already, made this decision. And just to, again, you don't want to enter a free agency period with a star unhappy, as Milwaukee has figured out. And it seems, I can't say this for certain, but it seems as though the Phoenix Suns organization, got off the plane from the bubble and was like, okay, we need to get Chris Paul to make sure that everything, we get to the playoffs next time. And that's why there was such an escalated price for Holiday, because that otherwise, why would you pay so much knowing that there's only, if you could beat the offer that the Suns have, which they didn't, why would you not do it? And the only logic is that it had already been done.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that's what I figured.
That makes complete sense. And Lowry would have been a perfect fit there, but you're not getting him, Bucks. This isn't even on our rundown, but I wonder, where do you guys think James Harden goes?
I think he probably goes to Philly. Like, that's just the most realistic spot for me. I think they're gonna have to trade one of Embiid or Simmons.
I was gonna ask, which one do you think they would give up, and who do you think he fits better next to?
He probably fits better next to Simmons, because I don't see Simmons as like the budget Giannis type of guy. He's just more. I look at him more as like in a Bam Adebayo role, where he's just not always initiating offense. He's dribble handoff, short rolling, using his athleticism in that way, and having someone else be the creator. I think he fits way better as that. And then Embiid, just as a role man, is just not something that's great. I just don't think James Harden and Embiid have great synergy together. And with Embiid, like, he gets hurt a lot, and I'm just wondering. There's always a question with like guys that with his play style. It's like, can a best player on the team win you that championship? And I don't know. It's like, like Embiid's a great player, but I would probably rather have James Harden and Simmons together, because it just looks like a much cleaner fit.
Yeah, I think that if you are going to trade him to Philly, the offer starts with Simmons. The Embiid fit's not perfect, but like, you can't really get there otherwise. I think Philly has sort of made Embiid their like token player. Like, he's their guy, and he's going to stay there unless something extremely drastic happens. A team that I've always thought would be wonderful is if the Atlanta Hawks cashed in all of their young guys except for Trey. They have like 4 first-round picks they could throw in, and then we could get some Trey off ball and then sort of replicate the CP3 system. I don't know how many games you win, but it would be extraordinarily fun.
That would be so much fun to watch. That would be so much fun to watch. I think the Embiid Simmons questions is interesting, because like, I agree with you, Robel. Like, I think that he fits better with Simmons for the exact same reasons. You're not like Joel Embiid's just gonna post up. You're not putting him in pick and roll a lot. He's very slow. But I think Joel Embiid is a better player.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that that's kind of like the difficult one, where if I'm Philly, I probably want to keep Embiid for that reason. And yes, he's injury prone, but it's not like Ben Simmons isn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to knock one of them for being injury prone when the other one is just as injury prone. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting question. I think Philly.
You guys don't think Brooklyn?
They don't have the
was like dying to get to?
They can't give up enough.
PD said a tweet. He said like the asset, like their trade
vibes. Yeah, I saw that one too. I love that one.
That's funny.
It's just like
it's true.
There's like, I would like to pursue a date with Rihanna. I don't meet the qualifications. It's not what she's probably looking for in return, but like, I'm obviously quite interested. It's the same sort of situation. Like,
quite interested.
Like, you can want something as bad, but like, Houston's going to take 1 year of Spencer Dinwiddie and 2 years of Karis LeVert, whose opinion changes depending on which front office you talk to. It's just not. It can sound great in 2K, but like, you still have to make the deal work in math and in opinion, and Brooklyn kind of failed both.
Yeah. And if you guys think if they fail out on getting Harden, are they going to push all their concentration to Ibaka at that point then? Or are they already? Probably.
I mean, yeah, they probably are talking to him. I don't think that's a great fit. Like, where are you gonna play Ibaka? I don't even think like, honestly, I mean, I think you guys know how I feel about Ibaka. It's like, it's very hard for me to see him as like a 30-minute per game big man, like, even when he play, like, obviously he's a straight 5. I don't know what the Lakers are thinking playing him for, but yeah, it's just a straight 5, and I just don't think his conditioning, just overall like focus in the game is. I don't think he's ready for like 30 minutes a game, and he's not someone that cleans up mistakes of other, like bad defenders. He's not that type of guy. So, like he's a really good stretch 4, but he just doesn't move the needle. And I would just rather focus on getting wings.
Yeah, speaking of vibe-based ideas, so the organization's going to want to play Jared Allen, Katie and Kyrie want to play DeAndre Jordan, and then Ibaka's just hanging out.
Yeah,
I forget about DeAndre Jordan every 5 minutes. Someone mentioned that he's on the Nets, and I'm like, oh yeah,
he's there too.
Oh,
yeah, he's currently untouchable in trades for James Harden.
It's crazy.
Untouchable? If he's untouchable, then who do you trade for James Harden?
When Kyrie said, he's like, we need help, like me, KD, and he mentioned DJ, and I'm like, what? That's a part.
You're like, oh, DJ's there too. Yeah, I don't see how they get Harden without giving up one of Kyrie or KD, and they're not going to do that. So that's going to be interesting.
Oh, make the move.
Yeah. But speaking of the draft and everything, people are saying that
here. You guys are here for the draft. So let's get into the actual draft.
Actual draft, yeah. Let's forget the rumors for a second.
Can we preface this by saying me and Noor know nothing about the draft? Anyone who is not in the NBA or WNBA might as well be playing another sport. I've never watched them.
In Europe. Don't know.
They're not
explain the draft to us like we're 5 years old, because we have no idea what's going on.
All right,
but
so I'll let you go with your question now.
Yeah, there's growing rumors or just opinions right now that this year's draft class is a lot weaker than before, and because you guys are our resident draft experts, what's your take on that?
Robel, you want to do this one first?
Yeah, I mean, I always give the same answer. I agree in the sense of there's no clear franchise changing talent. Like last year, there was Zion, and that class was considered kind of weak too. So it was Zion's he's clearly gonna, you have to build around him. He's your number one guy. And with the 2020 class, it's just they're all kind of questionable, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just the upside is, even though for LaMelo it's pretty high, Anthony Edwards it could be high. It's questionable how likely it is for them to reach their ceiling. And in that regard, I would say it's weak, but it's good other ways. I mean, there's a lot of sorry, PD, go.
I didn't say anything.
Oh,
there's an echo.
Okay, my bad. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of I think there's a lot of high field players, not really guys that create advantages, but that can how do I say it, can capitalize off them. And that's what I kind of see as a trend in the lottery, especially. And then I think the draft is pretty good with the shooting depth. I think there's a lot of good shooters in this draft as well. So, I mean, in that, are you looking for that Zion type of player? Giannis, LeBron, no, is not going to be here, but it's good in other ways. So,
yeah. The best way to explain whether a draft is weak or strong, it's how comfortable GMs feel making picks and whether they feel like they're going to get fired for doing so. If they don't feel job security, there's no amazing guy, they call it a weak draft. If they feel very certain that taking very talented guys won't get them fired, it's a strong draft. I mean, look at that Anthony Bennett draft. It got a lot of people really fired because they had to gamble and do their jobs correctly. Mm-hmm. This draft is really strong between 25 to 45. That is the area where there are more NBA players than any other year. So good teams and teams that have developmental systems, teams that have very specific fits are going to do really well in this draft. If you are looking for a savior in the top 3, you better fit their needs or you're going to be in trouble. If you just, say I think this guy could be the best and don't worry about the context of your team. Players like Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, LaMelo Ball are very dangerous because they need specific developmental context to be successful and to provide value to your teams. This is, of course, complicated by the fact that the number 1 and number 2 draft slots are held by teams that want to make the playoffs next year. So they have a weird choice of, do you go with the guy with the most potential but may not help us next year, or the guy with lower potential who can probably help you win a playoff series?
Interesting. And based off all that, do you guys think there's a consensus number one pick? Like your favorite?
No,
my
PD go.
I mean, I think LaMelo Ball's going to go number one. I don't think that I would take him number one if I was the Timberwolves, just based on what they need. This goes back to, what do you do with your superstar? Karl-Anthony Towns would like to make the playoffs. If you take a guy who might need a little more time, like, he's probably going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think LaMelo's the best prospect, but I honestly, I've been so out of tune in draft rumors because I think everything's a smokescreen, so I don't really know at one point who's really going number one. But I mean, if I would have the pick, I wouldn't choose neither LaMelo or Wiseman. I'd probably be looking at Vassell or Okoro, just a wing that helps right away.
How about you, Iman? Do you have a take? Do you have a consensus? Number one?
Yeah, whoever goes number one, I'm gonna pretend that was the guy that I knew it all along. No, I have no idea. This is kind of one of those drafts where because all of the talk has been about how there's no top end talent, or that it's more that you can find guys maybe later in the draft than earlier on. And of course you're hearing LaMelo Ball's name everywhere, but outside of him, it seems like all of the guys have a lot of serious flaws and none of them have the ceiling of a Zion. There's no consensus pick in that way that I don't know. It's a crapshoot. I don't care. Pick somebody. It kind of feels like what everyone was saying around the same time that the Raptors drafted on Jared Bargnani. It feels like one of those years where guys are I don't know, there's got Brandon Roy, you've got LaMarcus Aldridge, there are some guys, but then Jared Bargnani goes number one because no one actually knows anything, because it's not one of those drafts with a LeBron James or a Zion and a clear-cut number one pick.
That's what they were saying about LaMelo too. They were he could go first, he could go fifth, he could go 10th. You can't really predict it for this one.
I saw one guy's name where someone said he can go anywhere between 13 and in the second round. And I'm if you can be a lottery pick or a second round pick, I can't trust this draft. I know nothing. Nobody knows anything. So that's when I gave up on learning about the draft when I read that.
Yes. I was how does that make sense? I can't even wrap my head around it.
I forget his name.
Whose name?
The guy who someone was well, he can be a lottery pick or he can go in the second round. And I'm that doesn't make any sense.
The same guy I was quoting too. That's what I saw too. I was oh, that makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about, but still I have no idea what's going on. The other question is, Raptors can draft any position and would make sense, but their biggest needs is probably a big and a backup PG. With the 29th pick, what do you expect Masai to do?
I would say I would expect him to take Xavier Tillman at 29 if Xavier Tillman is available. Xavier Tillman was probably one of the three most dominant players in college basketball. He's a junior in college on the older side. He weirdly has the exact same physical dimensions as Kawhi, but he's a center.
Oh. With the hand size too, say that. With the hand size, the same size of hands.
Really? No way.
Yeah.
That's all
there's probably 5 or 6 centers who are going to get drafted in front of him, and most of them played in his conference, and he buried all of them. There are multiple pictures of people playing Xavier Tillman looking like they would never want to play basketball ever again because he's giving them such a hard time. Masterful defender. Angles, he plays like a grown man at all times, which is great. And if you're a playoff team, getting a backup big who has a feel as a passer, has upside as a shooter, is a great finisher, brings the tenacity on defense, and can be multiple in coverages. So whether you're going to blitz one possession, then you go hard hedge the next one. If you go drop, then you're going ice. Xavier Tillman can do all that, and it's no problem. So if you're picking late at 29, this is a player who makes a lot of sense and fits your timeline.
How about you, Robel? Same thing?
I just want to give a different answer, but I do love Xavier Tillman a lot. That's the first Raptors prospect that I was just Raptors, if you don't draft him, I'm leaving the team. But I would probably say it depends on who's available, but I've been liking Isaiah Joe a lot lately. He's neither a point guard or a big, but I just don't feel like drafting for need is always just great. Like I just look at guys who have like our wing depth isn't as like great as it sounds, and he's a very good shooter. I mean, I look at volume a lot when evaluating shooting prospects, and he took 11 threes a game. And anyone who took 11 threes a game in college is certified to me. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's not 34%, it's like volume matters a lot. Like we love Matt Thomas, but he pump fakes threes a little bit too much for my liking. You know what I mean? So like I need guys to just let it fly because it just helps with Lowry, it helps with Siakam, and he's 6'5", so he has pretty decent length. On the defensive end, he's a very good team defender. He gets a little bit too he takes a little bit too many gambles, but I like his ground coverage, and I feel like in the defensive system, and we need guys that can cover ground, right? So because he's doing the closeout thing, aggressive closeouts, and he would be great in that system. So, and I do think he has a little bit more on-ball equity than given credit for. It just all depends on how much weight we can put on him. But I do believe in like the strengths program for us. I think it's like top 10. Probably, I think every single Raptors player who joined the team gained weight and gained a lot of muscle. So you look at Pascal, Norm, they weren't as big as they were when they were drafted.
Yeah, for sure. The only one they're still kind of missing is Boucher, but I don't know.
That's a lot. That's a lot you're asking for.
Yeah.
And I will say Boucher literally said he would try it and then he would get discouraged quickly and he'll stop. So he didn't take it serious. So it's like if Isaiah Joe does take it serious, then he could do it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see Boucher a little bit more buffed up. Like, I wonder how that would slow down his speed, but I think at least he wouldn't be getting bodied on every possession on the opposite end. The other question is, what contending teams do you see trading up into the lottery?
I mean, the Thunder seem like the most logical one. Having 25 and 28 is a weird dispersal of picks, especially in a draft where if you like a guy, you can move up. The name that's going to be linked a bunch with them is Alexei Pokusevski, who's, I think, going to be everyone's favorite player as a rookie because he's the only player wilder than LaMelo Ball. He's 7 feet tall. He's tried passes I've never seen another human being try before. He regularly tries to shoot from a step inside half court, basically. Just an extremely wild decision maker. He's listed at 200 pounds. I would guess he's like 185 at 7 feet tall. It's a project, but for a team that's currently built to actually contend, even though this is their, I guess, tanking alignment.
Yeah.
That's an interesting spot to be in. I mean, the Celtics make a lot of sense too because they have 3 picks and don't necessarily have the roster spots, but they're also potentially trying to get Harden. So their circumstance, who knows if they hold those picks.
What? Are you trying to tell me that the Celtics are in trade rumors for a superstar?
Yeah.
It's different this time. It's different this time. They're being mentioned before the player gets traded. It's getting mentioned. It usually happens afterward.
We hear it all the time.
Apparently, they're shopping Kemba and Hayward for Harden. Like, it's just trying to throw whatever they can at the Houston Rockets. What is that the better package that they would receive for Harden?
Who?
They're trying to shop Hayward and Kemba.
For who? For James Harden?
Yeah.
They can hang. What does that even mean? No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that people want. Gordon Hayward's not a great contract.
No,
Gordon Hayward has a bad contract. Both how old is Gordon Hayward? He's definitely over 30. Was he 31, 32? Kemba's probably 30. You're trading both of those guys for a superstar and James Harden. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
The offer has to start with Jaylen Brown at the very minimum. Yeah. So
you have to give up one of Jaylen. Like, that's the same thing. Raptor fans were talking about it. If you're going to potentially trade for James Harden, you have to be willing to give up a Pascal Siakam or an OG Anunoby. Obviously, Raptor fans wouldn't want to do both. I think both is probably the best offer that Houston can get. I don't want to do that. Raptor fans, do not kill me. I'm not looking to do that. That would hurt my soul. But if you're the Celtics, once again, it has to start with Jaylen or Jason. Obviously, Jason is off the table. They're not doing that. So the offer starts with Jaylen.
Yeah.
And I think that the Raptors could beat the Boston offer.
Because Pascal's better.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think even if you just did OG sign and trade Van Fleet, like there's a number of ways to get there that
Yeah,
the Raptors have. That the Celtics are just gonna be like, we were not going to include, Carson Edwards, because that's what they always do.
Hey, they did not include Jaylen Brown for Kawhi Leonard because he was going to be the next Kawhi Leonard, guys.
Worked out great.
It worked out well. Sorry about that. I cut you off while you were talking about Celtics trades. I'll mute myself again.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is going to be a draft where people should wait to put on the hat after they get drafted. Maybe don't even go to the press conference like the Cal Bridges, because people are going to get moved. The tax situation, the new cap situation has a lot of owners spooked. They don't want to pay that. There are other teams who think that this may be a year to capitalize because they have the answer on why the guy in the 20s is actually going to be the best player in the draft. Similar to like 2011 when everyone was awful and then like Kawhi turned up at spot 15.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be one of those years where just because a guy gets picked doesn't mean he might not be wearing a Raptors jersey or a Celtics jersey.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And actually, not to go back to what you guys are talking about, but would you assume that Masai right now is trying to shop for Harden as well?
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wake up to work 4 a.m. tweets.
Masai does his due diligence. Masai does his due diligence. I definitely think that he.
Yeah, the BlackBerry's on. It's charged.
The blue is charged 100%.
There's some text messages coming and just don't know how serious it is. But I don't know how I feel about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, just to talk a little bit more about the Raptors, more so free agency than just the draft right now. What do you think happens with Fred VanVleet and that big position for the Raptors? But first, we'll start with Fred VanVleet. Do you think that he comes back? Do you have a kind of price point you think the Raptors would bring him back at, or do you think he goes elsewhere? If so, where? Because there are a lot of teams that needed point guards that have made trades for them, like Phoenix and Milwaukee.
I would say my bad, but I would say I would probably bring him back. I mean, Fred VanVleet is one of my favorite players. On the Raptors, I'd probably start looking at 21, 22 million, similar to Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's a better player than Malcolm Brogdon. So I would start looking at that as a similar contract. If he asks for more, I'd be like, all right, show me another team that gives you that offer, and then we'll see how I feel about that. And that's how it go. I would look around 21 to 22 million per year.
I think the Knicks are going to max him.
Yeah, show me another team that's going to match you. James Dolan's going to come through being like, what was the offer?
Yeah, and I think the max is the line the Raptors ultimately say, like, hey, we love you, and as our final token of appreciation, we're going to let you accept this max. I think that it gets difficult to I kind of think the last 2 years of that VanVleet contract are going to be underwater, just because of his inability to truly run an offense. Which is fair. It's just when you're maxing people, you have to hope that there's no limitations left. I mean, even like a wing like Gordon Hayward, there wasn't necessarily a way for him to return a max value even before the injury, just because of his own limitations. And when you're dealing with guards, that bar just gets higher and higher. I think that at the end of the day, this is a position that can be replicated by committee for the Raptors, and that it may be time to make a little piece with Fred signing a max.
So do you think that's more likely than Fred saying? Like, you think that that's the move? The Knicks are just going to offer him all of the money and he's going to take it?
Yep.
You're hurting a lot of Raptor hearts right now. Let me tell you that. Not mine, but lots of Raptor hearts are hurting right now. I'm kidding. I just wanted Robel to
Hey, just know when I talk about Norman Powell, you're gonna hear the same thing, all right? Like,
hey, no,
when we start talking about who we should trade up for.
Oh, I'm totally fine. Like, I love Norm, but I understand Norm's limitations. I love Fred, and I understand Fred's limitations. The only person that, has none and is a perfect player is named Kyle Lowry. I'm kidding. But, yeah.
But I do want to say Bobby Webster did have his little media presser earlier today, and he mentioned in that their number one priority is keeping Fred, and that they feel like talks are being moved in the positive direction. So, I mean, I don't know how much they're going to offer him, but how much is too much for Fred, for us, Iman?
I think Robel said the perfect thing. Around what Brogdon got makes the most sense. Here's the thing. I think if the Raptors are going to keep Fred, they're going to be overpaying him. And I'm fine as long as it doesn't exceed like 22 mil. Like, if it gets past that, I think here's the thing. You won a championship with him. And I think there's always a little bit of money you kind of give as like a thanks for your run here. You played your part well, and this is like a nice little contract that we're giving you, because I think you have to, as a franchise, be able to reward your guys in that way. And Fred is an integral part to what the Raptors do. The Raptors next year do need Fred VanVleet in order to remain competitive. I talk a lot about Fred's limitations. I'm not, the most vocal Fred VanVleet supporter, but I do think that he's a really good player and he's integral to what the Raptors do. Losing Ibaka, I think, hurts the Raptors just because they're so thin, with bigs, but he's not as important as Fred VanVleet to this team's success. Having said that, Fred VanVleet is not the future point guard for the Toronto Raptors. He is not their future starting point guard. I don't particularly like him in that role unless they're bringing Giannis, which, I mean, doesn't seem very likely at this point. So if you're going to be paying him more than that, or if any team is going to be paying him more than the 22, adios. It was fun. Have a great time in New York or Detroit. I don't know what Detroit's money cap looks like, but, have fun over there. But if it's under that, I think the Raptors are the team that gets him. And I'm hoping that he signs for that. But, hey, make your money, Fred. You deserve it. You won a championship. Now get paid.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to him wanting to contend or him wanting money.
I don't worry. I kind of wonder that the Knicks, I know the Knicks like big names, though, right? Like, I feel like they knocked out so many terrible. Like, they really do overpay for, like, really shitty point guards in their history. But they also like big names. Like, I wonder if there's, like, a way that they can, like, find their way into one of these point guards that keep switching teams, like a Russ or a Wall or somebody ridiculous. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's probably going to be Fred. I think if he goes there, I'm kind of with you now. I was on the bandwagon of him staying in Toronto more likely than him leaving, but I think I might have switched. I'm very fickle.
Just in one conversation, you're like, never mind.
Oh yeah, someone else is like, no, he's gonna stay, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's whatever. It's free agency. No one knows anything.
Every convo, they changed my mind.
Wait. Did we get what you think more about? Do you think that he stays? Do you think that he goes? Did we get your answer?
I don't know if we did. I think he stays.
Okay. At what price?
I think we overpay him, probably 25.
Ooh.
I think we might overpay him because I think I see Masai. I don't know. Like I don't know why, but I think that Masai is the kind of guy who's going to make sure that his guys are rewarded. And just based off of the conversations that we've heard all throughout the postseason, and they're on their pressers, the front office seems very just very leaning towards bringing everybody back. Their talk has just been down the line of running it back. So I think their priority and what they want is to bring Fred back. They think he's the future. They think he's a franchise. They think he's Kyle's tethered. But I don't know. For me, it's probably not the right opinion. But for me, I just think that if you lose Fred, I think like you mentioned this to Iman, I think if you lose Fred, you at least still have Kyle. But if you lose Serge and you lose Mark, then who do you have? Like what if Mark's not back either and you lose Serge on top of that? Then your center at that point is Boucher.
I think what we've probably learned from Masai's years, even in his time in Denver, is that he's not the most sentimental guy. You know what I mean? Like he'll sign Nene and then just be like, adios, amigo. He'll trade DeMar DeRozan to break everybody's hearts. Like I don't think he's the most sentimental guy. So I don't know if Fred is looking for him to do that out of sentimentality. I don't know that Masai Ujiri is that guy. But Robel, did we get?
I didn't think so either. But then last year he made no changes to the roster. So I was like, maybe he is. Maybe that's all he wanted, just the ring. But I don't know. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
I was wondering, like, I remember you saying like the Malcolm Brogdon thing, but Robel, do you think he stays or do you think he goes? Where are you leaning?
I think whichever team gives him the most money, he's out of there.
But
like,
what do you think?
What did you say? Sorry.
What do you think is the most likely scenario?
I mean, I'm probably leaning on like 55%. He leaves, 45% he stays. Because I just think if the Knicks give him like 25 or even max him, I don't know if the Knicks will max him, they might, but I mean, he should chase the money. I would tell him that too. Like, like you already have the championship, you know, you're a small guard. You're like, what? He's 27. This is your biggest contract you're going to get. Go get that money.
Go lead your team at that point.
I agree. Now, Nora, do you need like a minute? Should we like take a commercial break here? Because all three of us outside of you have said that Fred VanVleet is probably leaving. If you need a minute to like gather yourself a little bit, compose yourself.
I think you just hate me or something. No, I don't think I'm emotionally attached to him. Like it's weird to say. Like I love the team, but I think I'd be okay if Fred left. But I think that's only because I know that we still have.
Kyle. Oh, because you want Serge is the one that you're emotionally tied to. I was like, I saw a meme this morning about you needing to cry. It was Serge. I mean, in my head it was Fred VanVleet, wasn't it? Okay.
No, I think it was Serge. No, I think just in my sense, like I agree with Robel too. I don't think Serge is a player that you want to play on the floor all the time. Like Serge excelled last year because he had Mark. And he had Mark there to clean up his mistakes, clean up his shit, and he was dividing his time with Mark really well. And I think that benefited both of them because they were able to rust as well as bring on their best show for the court. But I don't know. I think with Fred and both Serge, you're not sure how their game is going to translate because the Raptors as a team, as a function, they're able to hide their teammates' flaws a lot better. I don't know if that's just because of how they play together. They understand each other a lot better, but I think they just know where to stop each other's downfalls. Whereas if you take Fred out somewhere else, I don't know. I think he's going to hold the ball down for like 20 seconds. He might run out the clock for forever. Serge might have like oily fingers everywhere he goes. So I don't know. I think it's different when you look at it that way. But I think just in terms of the team itself, I don't know. If Mark's gone, like we kind of need Serge, right? Like who else would we get?
I love the fact that you basically just said Kyle Lowry is the most important player to the Toronto Raptors because without him, you have Fred on ball just dribbling the life out of that ball. And without him, you don't have the pick and pop game that the Kyle and Serge have perfected together and you just have buttery finger Serge. No, but I think you asked a good question of what can the Raptors get to shore up that sort of big spot. Chris Boucher is also a free agent. Do you think that the Raptors keep him, Robel, or do you think that they go after, or maybe they keep him and go after someone else, maybe a Harry Giles, someone else on the market? What do you think the Raptors do for that big spot?
Yeah, I wouldn't get back Chris Boucher. I mean, like people think about him like a young player. I mean, the guy's like 28. Like relax. Like, you know, like the ceiling's limited. He's not a rotation guy. Even in the regular season, honestly, he's a fun energy big that does stuff. Like you don't know if it's good or bad. You never know. Like very unreliable. So I wouldn't bring him back. He's a restricted free agent. He had a lot of big plays and like I said, unreliable. But there's sometimes he shows out, and I think a team is going to pay him like $10 million. Yeah, go. You had a great time here, you know what I'm saying? So like you can get out of here if you get like 10 mil or something like that. I would look at Harry Giles, but the idea of Harry Giles is like he's more like a developmental kind of player. Like he's not ready to play like 25 minutes for a playoff team. He needs to be like easy and he needs to get some G League time too. So I would get him for a developmental Some other options. I mean, before I say my options, I would just want to say that OG is probably gonna, end games as being the 5. So I don't think it's super important to replicate Ibaka's scoring or Marc Gasol's passing, even though our defense is gonna take a hit with Gasol, and our scoring might hurt a little bit with Ibaka's play finishing, but I feel like OG brings a different aspect to the game as a 5 that is just better than both. So I don't think we need to have a big man ready to play 30 minutes and be a starter. There's just a guy that could just be a rim runner and just a play finisher is just fine, because you're not going to be playing the end of the game minutes. So I would probably start looking slightly at Tristan Thompson. I know he's he's from Brampton, so I would say that hometown hero, but I know he's not great at all of that, but it's just a guy that could do that for 20 minutes. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. Just don't maybe bring Biyombo back. I don't know. I didn't look at the free agent bigs this year, but other than
there's not a lot of names. You kind of named the the major.
Yeah, they're not even good options. I don't really feel right saying those names, so it's
that's what's out there. It's slim pickings, but I completely agree with you, and I think you raised a good point. Also, Sandy mentioned something in the chat that I thought was a good point. If the Raptors overpay Fred this summer, I think it means Masai thinks Giannis is probably out of here. I mean, not an option. Or the 2021 free agent is not a huge option if they're looking to overpay Fred. PD, what about you? Do you think that there are bigs on the market that possibly the Raptors should go for, or maybe even some guard options? Slim pickings right now in free agency, maybe even looking towards the draft. Is there a guy that the Raptors can get? Their developmental team is really good. So I think Terry Giles, you kind of made a great point there, Rola. I thought, but the Raptors, they can trust their development team. We've seen it with all of these guys that have come through and then really just been plug and play. No matter who the Raptors get, they're able to fit into a rotation and be a contributor on a contending team. So I think that they probably can continue to do that. But PD, what do you think?
There's actually a number of, if you want to dig down to the bottom of the basement or the bottom of the bargain bin, there are some names that if you play them really small minutes have proven to be effective. You have Alex Len and Nerlens Noel. There's if they're your third center, bringing energy off the bench, it's similar. Nerlens would play roughly the Boucher role. He's probably a better events creator. Giles is the name that I was really locked in on. You have a lot of bigs in this draft. To me, the clear favorite is Xavier Tillman. But even if it's somebody like Udoka Azubuike, who's just a giant human being who dumps everything, blocks shots, and makes good defensive rotations, that'll be a positive player his rookie year. And just to get a rotation of guys, because OG at the 5 is going to be crucial for this team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that puts so much you're going to play OG at the 5, and then even sometimes slide Pascal down at the 5. Because guard flexibility is so important to this team, it puts less pressure for consistent big minutes, and you can get creative with what you're doing at the end of the bench, trying to find a specific matchup, especially if OG keeps the shooting development curve going, because then you can really start to stretch things out and get defenses into strange places. If you wanted a shooting big exclusively, Killian Tilly is a big from Gonzaga. He's an okay defender, but he was a 40% three-point shooter in his worst college year, with his best year being around 45%. He was probably a top 10 talent in this draft, but he had recurring ankle and knee injuries that kept him sidelined during his years at Gonzaga. So if he gets a clean bill of health and he's available at 20 in the late 20s, or even a little bit higher if you have to trade up, that would be somebody who can win you a playoff series with his ability to stretch the floor. And if you have defensive cover like OG and Pascal, not to mention Kyle Lowry, the world's greatest post defender, you can get him onto the floor easier and really manipulate a defense.
Yeah, I will vouch for Killian Tilly as well. The only reason I don't personally talk about him a lot at 29 is because Mike Grimanov mentioned to me that his injury concerns have happened since before college, and I think PD, is he a junior or a senior? But like, I know he's been in college for a while. Right?
He is a senior.
Yeah, so it's been 5 years of injury, like, you know, problems, like recurring ones. So it's like, I mean, you know, like it is a problem. I do believe in our health staff though, but it's like I need to see like him actually be able to play like at least like, you know, like 65 games of like, you know, reliable minutes. And then I would think he's like the number one big for us. Like I think he's a better prospect than Xavier Tillman without that. And I mean he's a better prospect than like, you know, he's probably near the lottery for that if he wasn't, you know, injury prone.
So 5 years of injury, that's kind of scary because I was as soon as you mentioned that, I was like, well, that's kind of like OG story, right? Like he would have gone higher in the draft had he not had the injuries and teams passed up on him, but Masai was right there to take him. But 5 years of that just seems like
Yeah.
Long time, yeah.
And with OG, like Indiana was like hiding his ACL injury. Like the thing was that nobody got the medical reports because they were trying to get him to come back. So he fell based on like a lack of people's evidence. And, you know, eventually someone was like, how bad can an ACL injury actually be? And, you know, the things are what they are. I mean, OG should have gone much higher. This is a thing where basically everybody who's seen the medical reports is like, oh, this is really unfortunate. You're a very good basketball player, but I don't know if you're going to be able to like hoop at a professional level. It's a huge risk, but when you're a team that's only concerned with winning playoff games, I think that you're allowed to take big risks because if they pay off, you end up with a hyper talented guy who can contribute on a small contract.
So you guys kind of inadvertently answered the next question that we were going to ask about who's the sleeper guy. Is there someone else in this draft that you think is a sleeper pick that maybe could be available at 29 or maybe even a little bit higher? But who do you think is that steal that's going to be in the draft that might go a little bit later than you think they should?
For the Raptors or like
not just in general, you can say one for the Raptors if you have an answer specifically for the Raptors, but also just in general for this NBA draft.
I mean, with steals, I mean everyone loves asking this question. With steals, it's like we've been doing this draft cycle's been on so long that all the steals, it's like everyone knows about them already. Like I would say like a Desmond Bane, Isaiah Joe, Grant Riller, but like these guys are all like, you know, everyone likes them. Everyone wants them. People are already talking.
I completely agree with you. But I think the question might be like, who do you like? You're like, hello, what is everyone like missing what is everyone missing that I'm seeing here? Is there someone that you think is special in this draft that you think maybe some teams are overlooking?
Yeah, Grant Riller for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where his stock is at now, but every time I look at the ESPN boards, it's never in the first round, and I'm probably like right outside the lottery. I just think, I mean, just turn on the highlights and you're just like, how, like, what are teams not seeing here? You know, he's getting by anyone, anytime he wants to. He's cooking people, like, sidestep back. Like, it's just crazy. Like, best shot creator in the class. To me, he's the best finisher. Like, people say Obi Toppin, but, like, bigs, like, it's easier for a big to finish at the rim, you know? He's a guard. He's a 6'3" guard. So it's like, you know, I would give the edge to Grant Riller as the best finisher in the class. And he's an older one. He's like, I think 23 or 24. And I think that's why his draft stock is low. The defense is terrible. Just terrible. But it's defense. And like, I do so much that I can't play defense and all of that too. If I'm getting, you know, double teamed all the time and I have to drop 30 for me to win. I mean, for the team to win. So it's like, I feel like he's going to have a way lesser role on the Raptors. He fixes – I'll answer this for the Raptors and in general, but I love him on the Raptors because he just fixes that half-court issue that we have. And he makes the game easier for OG, Siakam, like just by him being able to bend defense because he's going to get by his guy and he can make the right read just off his gravity.
PD?
So, yeah, there's a player who's if I described him in like broad strokes, it's going to sound pretty familiar. He's a stockier point guard, an absolutely legendary college shooter whose best season was 90% from the free throw line, 50% from the 3-point line, 50% from the field. He gets by with just like physical strength. He's a little on the slower side. And every time he gets around the rim, he just finds the weirdest ways to finish, whether it's off the glass or
how do the Raptors draft him?
His name is Cassius Winston.
I know who my favorite pick is.
Yeah, he's just a master of the dark arts in terms of offensive finishing. I've never seen somebody like take a floater jumping backwards into somebody, but I saw him do it like 3 times and they were all and ones just because he knew the person was behind him.
And he gets the call that Lowry doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, and he gets the call. I mean, he can work a ref with the best of them. I think that the reason that he's not, a higher pick is that, his game is not necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but he's been a winner every year in college, and his coach didn't let him shoot enough because if you can shoot this well, you should be shooting 8, 9, 10, 11 threes a game. And
Lowry couldn't even shoot at that time. My goodness, I have my favorite. Look, why isn't this the number 1 overall pick? What are we doing here, guys?
Look, he's number 1 in my heart.
Okay, because he can't get anybody. That's the reason. Like he can't.
He got to the cup enough at Michigan State.
Yeah, he did. But like everyone, I mean, he's built like Lowry too. That's the funniest part.
Can't move him in the post either. What is wrong with you guys?
Okay, the only problem. Sorry, I don't mean to rain on anyone's parade. It's like the only difference between him and Lowry is like Lowry's an athlete. Like he's an athlete, and Cassius Winston looks like someone off the street compared to Lowry as like burst, just quickness and speed. So that's the main differentiator. But everything else is just like they're like twins.
Yep. I can't imagine a better long-term replacement. He consistently, like you look at him the first time you see him in a uniform, you're like, that's a 36-year-old mechanic on his off shift. And then he'll hit like just dagger threes from the volleyball line. You're like, this guy's hooping. He's a guy that if you can probably get him in like the early second round, or especially in the late first, he'd help a playoff team. I don't find his burst issue that problematic for the Raptors because you have 2 wing size creators in OG and Pascal. And if Fred VanVleet stays, especially, it's like why not just get like a top 3 shooter in this draft, somebody who will never pump fake, who's not scared in any moment, this is Detroit, Michigan's version of Kyle Lowry.
Burst isn't something I've had in a Raptors point guard since TJ Ford. Like it's been Jose Calderon and Kyle Lowry. I'm fine without the burst, guys. I'll take it.
I want to say one thing. We could. I'm thinking about this idea while PD is talking. We could draft Xavier Tillman at 29, buy like a second round pick, get Cassius Winston, whatever. I don't know, like the 40s or something like that. And then you create the best duo in college basketball this year, and it'd just be fun because they both played at Michigan State and they rarely lost games. So
you have Kawhi's hands and Lowry's body. That's what the Tiger Jury needs to be doing. 2021 champions. All right, you guys are almost coming to an end. But there was one question that I wanted to ask you guys. Who do you think in this draft is a player that can contribute right away? Like who is going to be that? A lot of the times players are a little bit far away. They're projects, especially the younger guys in the draft, but who's someone that you think can be a contributor right away to whichever team drafts him?
I'll let PD go first.
I'll go Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey is probably my favorite player in this draft to watch. Because he's like a 6'2" guard whose favorite activity is like sprinting full speed into bigs and trying to finish over them. He's built like a strong safety. Another just like guy who's wired like Fred VanVleet. Incredible point of attack defender. In college, he was asked to be like the guy, which isn't really a role he's suited to. He's probably better as the second best player on a very good team. So the combination of shot making, of finishing in the paint over NBA length, and the audacity is just generally what makes a guy ready to contribute for a good team.
All right, Nor, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, when are you guys working for Masai? They clearly need you guys. You guys know exactly who the prospects are. We need you guys on the team. Let's go.
You know what? That's actually a great. Can I just jump on and say For people who want to kind of do what you guys do, or for people who are interested in looking at college ball, high school ball, European basketball, and trying to see who can be an actual prospect or who can actually be a player in the NBA, what are the things that you guys look for that lets you know that a guy is NBA ready? Or what do you guys look for in a young guy that makes you think he can become something quite valuable on an NBA team?
Good question.
I'll say this. PD literally has like a whole series about how to scout while watching highlight tapes. So I know people don't have time. You know, games are long. Like people don't understand that games are long. So PD has literally something called the heuristic, where he has like all of these rules looking for exactly what you need to see for prospects to either be very good or I don't know if this could translate. You know what I mean? So everyone needs to go check that out right now. Like it's amazing. And I mean, for me specifically, it's one of the rules. I always just look at something that's special. Like you need to stand out, you know, there needs to be at least one skill that's like, okay, you know, if you're scouting in college, high school, Europe, there's something here that no one else in this arena has that he can do, right? And when you see that, it's like, then it becomes a prospect to me.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. I mean, I think that the most important thing is that whatever the person you're looking at is good at, it better be by a huge margin. So if they're athletic, it should look like they don't even belong in this gym. They're like, it should look like child abuse because everybody else can't jump with them. If they're a shooter, like they shouldn't miss. If they're big, like they better be real big because every time you move up a level, those skills get reduced in specialness.
Yeah.
So as a person, like the way that I describe it is like if you showed basketball to somebody who'd never really seen it before, what they would walk away being like, those dudes were big, but that one dude, giant person. Like that's sort of what the idea of the heuristic is recognizing that like the things that are truly special in basketball players, even non-basketball players can see. Like you could have shown Kawhi to anybody, and they're like, yeah, they really can't. When that one guy's on them, they can't do anything. So that's what I would generally recommend is trying to find special and latching onto it because those are most often the guys that have the best chance.
That's really interesting. It's going to keep us keep our eyes open too. Just look for a freak of nature, pretty much.
Yeah, like Cassius Stanley, like he should be #1 pick. 50 vertical or something like that. Yeah.
Do you have a video on him?
I thought you said
No, I'm just joking. I'm just
okay.
Is his name Cassius Stanley or Cassius Winston? Because I've been
Cassius Winston. I put a picture of Cassius Winston below this live stream.
I'm retweeting that.
If you look down right now, you will see Kyle Lowry Jr. below this.
We have our replacement. Honestly, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and I found my new favorite player, and I'm going to be really upset when he doesn't go #1. And I'm assuming you said going in the second round, so you know what? I'm going to be really upset because that's what I do. I just, harp on how underrated my favorite player, who I've never watched, is. Most underrated guy in the league right now. I've never seen him play. Second of basketball, but it's gonna be my
side. Pick up the BlackBerry. Let's go.
But honestly, thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you guys so much for talking about the draft and everything sort of NBA right now. There's a lot going on, and I think we've learned a lot. I've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, you guys just check. Oh my God, I can't talk. Check out their stuff. They're fantastic. They know what they're talking about. They know exactly. Like you guys probably just saw it today. They're so well versed in their skill set that talking to them now, I'm like, oh shit, like I kind of know what I'm talking about too. Like I know what to look for in the next when I'm watching highlights, when I'm watching to see who's gonna come out and who would be a good fit for videos. They're so intricate. They're so detailed. He like I said, he posts them weekly. Baines, what, Sandy?
I think she's behind when we're talking.
That was 100% me.
That was you. I was like,
that was like Girl Baines, because she was wondering why we never mentioned him when we were talking about big options there.
I mean, everyone wants Baines though.
I was gonna say he's gonna get Baines.
Yeah, no. Sorry, Sandy, I didn't see that before. But yeah, check out their stuff. They're fantastic. They will make you smarter just watching it. And we got a potential. Yes, we do, Sandy. We do, apparently. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And we will see you again next week on Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody. We're closing it off with the claps here. And have a great weekend and have a happy draft day.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.